Welcome back to First Year in Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin. Today we are coming to you on a beautiful sunny day here in Scottsdale. Absolutely love getting to see the sunshine come in and just fill the day. But we are going to be talking about a great subject today in medical device sales because I've been getting on a lot of calls with people. It's been so much fun, like I said, to watch you all reach out. I'm glad you're getting value from this. So we've been actually having people reach out to us from the show, and that they're looking for like mentorship or just asking questions that they're going through. A lot of them are associates or again, working for distributorships. And they're like, hey, have a couple questions here, wanted to go. And so I got on a conversation with someone for about 30 minutes and we had a really good conversation about being a top performer and being able to have success in medical device sales. And so I'm making this, and what I want you all to always know is like, again, when I say any of this, it's not because I'm trying to brag on myself. It's not because I want you to think how amazing I am. I'm just putting this stuff out here to help you. And again, I just had our annual review, have been a top performer for my company I'm currently with, was a top performer at Medtronic. So I'm very blessed to be there. Again, I work very hard, but the reason I'm saying that is I want to share that with you. So I just want you all to know from the bottom of my heart when I'm sharing this, it's not like, oh, look at Jacob, look how amazing he is. I'm just letting you know I have been a top performer. I am a top performer, and I still continue to be a top performer where I'm at. And I just want to share with the tips that I've learned, but also with me being a top performer, I know friends who are also top performers, right? They usually hang around each other. And so I want to share what I've seen in the industry of the people who are top performers in medical device sales and the people who aren't. Because as my boy Joe, if you guys have watched this, you will see him at one of our first guests that we ever had. He said it a couple years ago when he was on our New to Medical Device Sales podcast. It was success leaves clues. And the one thing I will just tell you is if you continue to watch medical device sales, you continue to watch athletes, you continue to watch successful people, there's usually a lot of common traits that you'll see. And so when I look at medical device sales and people that are very successful, the one thing I always tell people is there's a lot of people who get into the industry and they'll just start reaching out to anyone that works at a big company, or they'll be like, oh, well, this person has been here for 12 years. And this is what I'll always sit here and say. It is amazing to learn from people who have been in the industry for 5, 10, 15 years because they have the experience. They just have the time that we haven't had, which is amazing. But what I always challenge people on is when they go and talk to somebody who might have been in the industry for a while, but has maybe never been a top performer. And the reason I'm saying that is I always make the joke, how many people are in the top 10 of the reps on their company? Well, there's only 10 in each company, right? And so the reason I'm just saying that is if you see that, normally you will see those top 10 reps over and over and over again in that category, because again, they got lucky. They know the skills and they know what they have to do to make things successful. So the reason I'm just saying that to you all is I want to share with you all what I commonly see with these people instead of the mistakes I see a lot of reps do is they're like, oh, I just talked with Joey or Sarah or whoever it is, and they've been in for 4 years, 8 years. But if they actually dug deep, they weren't performing. They weren't top reps. And so again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no slack to it. But what I'm just saying is most of the people watching this want to be top performers. And so what I would just sit here and say is we're going to dive into what I continue to see top performers. So number one, they set goals. For example, if they get a quota, what I have always done is if I get a quota, I'm going to get that number. I'm then going to divide it by 12. So I know what my monthly quota is. Then I'm going to divide it by the amount of selling days I have in each month. And then that shows me what I need to do daily. And then I'm just going to take that goal and I'm going to work it backwards. I've continued to watch other successful people. They just break down the goals into smaller chunks so that they can eventually hit the top goal or what they're trying to achieve. Compared to other reps, what I'll see is they're just say, oh, I have a number. And then they're just trying to fill the bucket with the numbers that they're trying to get. Right. And so again, you have to have an idea of what you're doing and why you're going the way you are, because otherwise you're just going to be drifting in the wind. As I always say, like if you think about a boat on the ocean, I've always said this to people. If you think about a little boat on the ocean, if you don't know where you're going and you just let yourself get rocked by the waves, eventually you're probably going to get into a storm and the waves are just going to top you over, right? They'll probably break your boat. But for example, if you're 100 miles offshore, but you know shore is that way, guess what? You're going to have big waves. You're going to have storms. You're going to have things that happen. But as long as you know where to go, you can at least keep going that direction. So that's what I want you to think about when I say they have a goal, they work it backwards, and they know they're just going to go put in the work. Number two, that's the biggest thing, is putting in the work. It's grit. It's showing up day in and day out. And this was the conversation I had with that person on the phone, is what most people can't do is something every single day that's going to help their territory. Now, I'm not saying you have to do stuff on Saturdays and Sundays, especially if you guys aren't in surgeries on Saturdays and Sundays. But what I see so many people do is they'll be like, oh, I worked really hard on Monday. And then they're like, I'm going to just not do much Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Especially if you're a new rep, the time of the first year is to be learning as much as you can. So I always say that learning over earning in those first couple of years. But what so many people do is they'll be like, oh, I'm trying to learn. And then they just are busy instead of learning. They're just doing busy work and they're not trying to get better every single day, because what you have to think about is getting better every single day. It's a compounding effect, right? It's no different than if you just keep showing up to the same place over and over, but you're making different relationships and you're providing value each and every time you're there. Eventually, over 3, 6, 9, 12 months, it's going to continue to compound to probably some good things, compared to someone who's like, oh, I had really good success at this hospital. They go to another hospital and then they come back 3 months later, right? Well, those people already forgot about the good things you did, right? They need to see it compounded each and every day. So that's what I want you to think about is when you're looking at having success, you need to be able to show up on a daily basis and you need to be consistent with it, because most people that are very successful are always consistent. They have the grit. They don't stop. Even when things are hard, even when things come their way, they're not going to throw a pity party for a week, right? I always tell people, if something bad happens, feel bad for the hour, feel bad for the day, but then you better get over it, because again, it's not going to change the day. And you don't want bad things to keep rolling into a day, a week, a month that turns into a bad year, because that's what people do. And it's a compounding effect, right? So you can either have really good days or you can have bad days. Again, there's going to be some waves that come, but you have to dictate how you're going to handle those storms. So that's what I would say for number 2 is just continuing to do the work, continue to show up. Number 3, strong relationships. I continue to see top performing reps have really strong relationships because they're an expert on what they do and they know how to talk to the surgeons, the doctors, the accounts as human beings. And we've talked about this time and time again on this podcast, but I really want to hammer it home for the fact of I was having a conversation with one of our students and we talk about, hey, how are you able to set yourself apart, right? And this is the biggest thing to set yourself apart is when you can go and have a conversation with a surgeon or a doctor and never even have to talk about surgery or med device sales. And you just get to know them and you get to know about themselves or about their life and about all the good things going on. And they're also going to ask you questions about yourself and they get to know you as a human being. And you guys and girls get to know each other on a surface level and then a deeper level of like a personal level. That's a big thing. But then once you go into the OR room, you are an absolute stud. You know the questions when they have problems, they can ask you and they know you're going to have an answer or you're going to find the answer. That is the common thing that I continue to see because again, there will be people who will be like, oh, Jacob, I'm just going to go make a relationship. But then when that surgeon asks you, hey, do you know what happens here? Or, hey, can you help us here? And you can't. Well, that doesn't help them get the best outcome from their patient, which they're going to go see after the surgery, right? They want somebody who's going to help them make their life easier. So that's why you have to be an expert. But also, I've seen people who are just experts, but they can't have a conversation with an actual surgeon. They can't just get to know them on a personal level. And then that only goes so far as well, because you can be an absolute expert, but if you can't, so like we always say this, if people can't feel like they can go have a beer with you, it's going to be a challenge. Now, again, this isn't me saying you have to go have beers with your doctors, because again, I'm not much of a drinker. It's not my thing. But the reason I'm just sitting here telling you, you need to know how to make relationships with people. You need to know how to be able to grow relationships with people. And you also have to be very good at what you do. Common thing I continue to see with top performers is they know how to be an expert in their field, but they also know how to create that relationship with the people they're working with and always continuing to provide value. They can also make themselves come in to be a real human being and not just the rep. And so that would be a big encouragement that I have for all of you. And then the one thing I just wanted to talk about is this, as you guys will see, this is for medical device sales, but this is just in life. And I'm very big on self-growth. It's being successful. And that's what I really wanted to end with today is the number one thing that I always continue to see people. And again, this would be number 4, but like number 1, I think the biggest emphasized point is growth, self-growth. It's people always continuing to get better. It's people continuing to learn, because the common thing that I see, there's a quote that was said, and it's like, winners will do way more work and feel like they haven't done anything, while losers will barely do enough and they feel like they've overachieved, right? And so it just goes to this is, I can tell you as somebody who's a high performer and what I do in my life, and this doesn't have to do with med device sales, it's everything. I always feel like I'm behind. I always feel like I'm not winning. I always feel like I could get better and there's other things that I can do. I hold myself to such a high standard. And that is the common trait I see with all of the high performers is they hold themselves to the highest of standards because again, it's their name that is aligned with everything. When they work for a company, it's still their name as the rep, right? And that's what you have to think about. They are going to make sure that that person has a great experience. And that's where I think most people miss the mark is most people will look at things as just a job, but high performers look at it as a representation of themselves. Their territory is a representation of themselves. And that's the thing I commonly see with these high performers is they are going to make sure things are done right. If things aren't being done right, they're going to make the changes. And even on this, on big deals that we've gotten done or deals just in general, everyone thinks, oh, like an average rep will get a deal done and they're like, yes, I just got a deal done. I'm the best. An overperformer and a high performer will get a deal done and be like, what did I do wrong that could have got that done faster? What could I have done differently that could have actually saved time? Or what was my talk track? Or was there something I said? Or was there body language I could have changed? That is the thing I continue to see is never being satisfied. I did everything perfect here. Because again, if you guys just shoot for perfection and you think you hit perfection, you are going to be not a high performer. I can sit here and tell you because the biggest performers that I see are the people who never feel like they made it, right? I think Matthew McConaughey has a quote and it's an awesome one is they're like, who's your hero? And he had to think about it and he came back and he said, my hero is me in 5 years. And so then they waited 5 years and that guy who asked him the question came back and he's like, hey, Matthew, are you your hero? And he's like, not even close. And then they asked him, who's your hero? And he's like, it's me in 5 years. And the whole conversation was, you're always chasing the better version of yourself, knowing that you're probably never going to reach it, but it's becoming the best version of you. And so that's why I wanted to make this is so many people think that med device sales has to do with just medical device sales. And what people don't understand, it's not medical device sales. It's not all the techniques. It's not all the tactics. It's not reading the challenger sale, all this stuff. It's who's the person, right? Who's the jockey running all of it? Because that's why I can sit here and tell you why I do what I do is because when you can find the people, you can teach them everything else. But there's things you just can't teach. You can't teach certain things like showing up early. You can't teach showing high quality of standard for what they have. You can't teach being able to have that emotional intelligence, the communication style. You can't teach people who are able to think on the fly and come up with solutions instead of focus on problems. And the last thing I'll say on that is it's hard to find a high performer who's negative. You don't see that. I see a lot of reps that are negative, and guess what they don't do? Perform, because their territory is too hard, or the product's having problems, the back orders, oh my gosh, the doctors, the surgeons. There's always a problem. Let me just make sure you all know this in life. There is always a problem. It is never perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And if you think it's going to be perfect, you will always be disappointed. But once you accept it's never going to be perfect and you just roll with the punches, you will see success continue to climb. And that's the thing about high performers is they're chasing the highest standard. They're chasing to have the best success, but they understand it's not going to be perfect and they're not going to let that detour them from having success. Compared to the losers, the people that I see that don't perform in med device sales or just in life, right? That are depressed or unhappy or not getting where they want to be in life is they play the victim. And that's the last thing I'll just sit here and say is you can't be a victim if you want to be successful. You can't say poor me. You can't be like, oh, my company or my manager or my whatever. It's the people who take extreme ownership because I always just sit here and tell you guys, like it's when I've talked with my buddies, if I've ever complained about something, guess who's the person complaining about it? Me. Guess who has all the power to change it? Me. So then you just look like a silly goose if you're just going to be like talking about all the problems, but you're the only one who can change it and you can dictate it. And if you really don't like something well enough, guess who can change it? Yourself. Now you just sound like a broken record if you come in every single day, complain, talk about something, and then you don't make any actions. So I can take this to, hey, if you're a rep and you can keep complaining about an account that's not doing very well, the nurses stink or whatever it is, guess who can change that? You. Guess what you can do? In services. Guess what you can do? You continue to provide value. There's certain things that you can always do. So that's the thing that I'll end you with is I said you can't play a victim, you can't do all that stuff, but it's the easiest to say is it's just extreme ownership. Your life is the way it is because of you. And that's what these top performers always do is I understand if my life is great, it's because of me, but also like there's a lot of external factors and I'm very thankful for that. Even more importantly, whenever things are bad, it's all me. That's how I look at life. If there's anything going bad in anything, in my territory, in my business, in my life, in relationships, anything, it is all me. And what do I have to do to change that? What do I have to do to fix that? But even when things are going great, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm the best. I'm in the world, right? What are things that I continue to improve on that? And so that's what I would just sit here and tell you all is to have extreme ownership. Because if you want to be a true top performer, and I don't mean just in med device sales, I just mean in life, that's what you have to do. You have to take extreme ownership. You have to be the person that you want to become, and you have to continue to put in that work every single day, knowing that you're going to hit waves, that you're going to have things that push you back. If you continue to stay with that, you continue to grow, you continue to just get better every single day, and you continue to make yourself the person you want to be, you will be so amazed by the next 3, 6, 12 months and the rest of your life. Because that is the common thing I continue to see with all of my buddies and my friends that I'm around that are very high performers. They all have these traits. So I really hope this was helpful for you all, because again, I want to help you in med device sales, but I also just want to help you in life. So I would just ask you if you can press that like and subscribe button. A 5-star review does help grow this channel. If you feel like this could be helpful for someone, please share it to them, because again, our goal is just to help as many people. It's been really interesting to see how this podcast has been really playing out for just helping people, getting on calls with people that are really just wanting to be the best version of themselves. But we've also had people reaching out because they're that associate trying to go to that next level, and we've been able to help them. So if that's you and you're interested, please feel free to reach out at Jacob McLaughlin or New to Medical Device Sales on LinkedIn. Always happy to connect with you all. But I just want you all to know, I hope you win. I hope you crush quotas. I hope you have the most successful life, because that's all I want for you all. I don't want a thing from you. I just want you all to win, be extremely happy, go bless others, and have a great week.